The escape pod tumbled through the darkness of space like a broken toy. Its hull was scorched black and deep gashes cut across its surface. Inside, a single human woman lay strapped to a medical bed, her breathing shallow and weak. The pod's emergency beacon flickered with the last drops of power, sending out a desperate call that no one had answered for 3 weeks. Captain Vrichtal of the Kreshvara trading vessel, Harmony's Gift, noticed the signal on his scanner. His 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. The signature was old, almost ancient by galactic standards. Human technology. Everyone in the Concordat knew what that meant. "Captain, we should ignore it," his second officer clicked in their native language. "Humans are extinct. This is probably a trap set by the Devourers." Vrichtal's antennae twitched with irritation. "And if it is not a trap? If there is truly someone alive in that pod, then they have been drifting for weeks. They are already dead." But Vrichtal was already changing course. He had lost his own family to the Devourers 5 years ago. He remembered watching his homeworld burn from orbit, helpless to save his clutchmates. If there was even a small chance someone was alive in that pod, he would not abandon them to the void. The Harmony's Gift pulled the escape pod into its cargo bay. Vrichtal and his medical officer approached carefully, weapons ready. The Devourers were known for their tricks, but when they opened the pod, they found only the woman. She was small by the standards of most species, barely reaching Vrichtal's shoulder. Her skin was dark brown and her black hair was matted with dried blood. The medical scanner showed severe radiation poisoning, multiple fractures, and massive internal bleeding. She should have been dead already. "Remarkable," the medical officer whistled. "Her body is still fighting. Humans were known for their stubbornness, but this is incredible." They rushed her to the medical bay. For 3 days, she hovered between life and death. The Kreshvara medical technology was advanced, but human biology was difficult. Most of the Concordat's medical data on humans had been lost when Earth fell. The medical officer worked from old records and instinct, praying to the void that he was doing more good than harm. On the 4th day, the woman opened her eyes. Vrichtal was sitting beside her bed when it happened. He had taken to spending his off-duty hours there, watching over her. He told himself it was simple curiosity, but deep down he knew it was something else. Saving her felt like making up for all the lives he had failed to save. "Where am I?" she whispered in Standard Galactic, her accent strange but understandable. "You are safe," Vrichtal replied, keeping his voice gentle. "You are aboard the Kreshvara vessel Harmony's Gift. I am Captain Vrichtal. We found your escape pod drifting near the Frontier Nebula." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "The Prometheus, my ship. Is anyone else? You were alone in the pod. I am sorry." She closed her eyes and tears ran down her cheeks. Vrichtal had seen grief across 100 species and it always looked the same. He reached out carefully and placed one of his chitinous hands on her arm. She did not pull away. "What is your name?" he asked softly. "Sarah. Dr. Sarah Chen. I was the lead archaeologist on the Prometheus." Over the following weeks, Sarah healed. Her body responded well to the treatments, and soon she was walking the corridors of the ship. The crew was fascinated by her. Most of them had never seen a human before. They had only heard stories about the species that had been wiped out during their very first contact with the galaxy. Sarah told them about the Prometheus. It had been an archaeological research vessel, exploring ancient ruins in deep space. They had been far from any settled systems when the Devourers found them. The attack had been brutal and swift. Sarah had barely made it to an escape pod before the ship exploded. "We were searching for something," she told Vrichtal one evening as they shared a meal in the observation deck. "Something important. But I guess that does not matter anymore." "Why were you so far from help?" Vrichtal asked. "The Concordat has dozens of species. Why was humanity exploring alone?" Sarah's smile was sad. "Because Earth fell 30 years ago, Captain. I was not there when it happened. I was already in deep space on a different mission. By the time I heard the news, there was nothing left to return to. The Prometheus crew took me in. Most of them were not human. They were good people." Vrichtal felt his heart's ache for her. To be the last of her kind, to carry that loneliness. "I am truly sorry, Dr. Chen. Please call me Sarah." She looked out at the stars streaming past. "You know what the worst part is? The Devourers did not even have a reason. They did not want Earth's resources. They did not fear humanity as a threat. They destroyed us simply because they could. Because that is what they do. Yes, Fricktal agreed quietly. That is what they do. When they finally reached a Concordat station, Sarah insisted on speaking to Fricktal privately before they docked. Captain, I owe you my life. You and your crew saved me when you had no reason to, when it might have even been dangerous for you. Fricktal waved his antennae in the Krishvara gesture of dismissal. You owe us nothing. Saving a life is not a transaction. It is what separates us from the devourers. It is what makes us civilized. Sarah smiled, but there was something intense in her eyes. Even so, I will not forget what you did. Someday, somehow, I will repay this debt. There is no debt, Sarah. Then let me say it differently. You saved me, Captain. You showed me that kindness still exists in this galaxy. That is a gift I will carry with me always. The station was a massive ring-shaped structure orbiting a blue giant star. Thousands of ships from dozens of species moved around it like insects around a hive. Sarah stared at it with wonder. She had not seen such a concentration of civilized life in years. The Concordat Council agreed to grant Sarah asylum and citizenship. They offered her work as a consultant on human technology and culture. It was strange, she thought, to be a consultant on her own extinct species. Like being a living museum exhibit, but Sarah accepted. She threw herself into the work, helping the Concordat understand old human systems and databases. She also began working on defensive technology, trying to find ways to help in the war against the Devourers. Fricktal was promoted to admiral and given command of a defense fleet. He and Sarah remained friends, speaking regularly across the communication networks. She never told him about the message she sometimes drafted late at night, a complex mathematical sequence followed by words in English. She never told him that Earth's fall had not been quite what everyone believed. 1 year after her rescue, Sarah stood in her small apartment on the Concordat station and looked at the stars. Somewhere out there, beyond the reach of any scanner, beyond the knowledge of the Concordat or the Devourers, something was waiting, something that would change everything. Not yet, she whispered to herself. But soon, she touched the small data crystal she wore on a chain around her neck. It had been with her in the escape pod, protected in a radiation-proof case. Inside it was information that could reshape the galaxy. But the time was not right. Not yet. First, she needed to wait, to watch, to learn everything she could about the Concordat and its war with the Devourers. And when the moment was right, she would send the message that would bring humanity home. 5 years passed like water flowing through open fingers. Sarah Chen became a familiar face on Concordat Central Station. She worked in the technology division, helping engineers understand ancient human systems that the Concordat had recovered from destroyed human colonies. Her expertise saved countless lives as she helped improve shield technology and weapon systems. But the war was going badly. The Devourers were winning. Every month brought news of another world falling, another species facing extinction. The Concordat military fought bravely, but they were always one step behind. The Devourers had better weapons, better ships, and no mercy whatsoever. Admiral Fricktal's fleet had grown, but so had the scars on his carapace. He had fought in 17 major battles in 5 years. His ship had been destroyed twice, and he had barely escaped with his life. The cheerful trader Captain Sarah had first met was now a hardened military commander. Tired but unbroken, they still spoke regularly, though now their conversations were often interrupted by emergency calls. Sarah watched her friend age under the weight of command. She saw the Concordat slowly losing hope. It was time. Sarah requested a meeting with the Concordat Council. She had never done so before, and the request itself raised eyebrows. The council gathered in their great chamber, representatives of 37 species sitting in a circular arrangement. Sarah stood in the center, feeling very small and very alone. Dr. Chen, the council speaker began. She was a tall crystalline being whose voice chimed like bells. You have served the Concordat well these past 5 years. What brings you before us today? I wish to request use of the Deep Space Communication Array, Sarah said clearly. The most powerful transmitter the Concordat possesses. Murmurs rippled through the council. The DSCA was an enormous structure, built to send messages across the entire galaxy. It was used only for the most critical announcements. For what purpose? The speaker asked. I need to send a message into deep space, beyond the edges of known territory. To whom? Another council member demanded. There is nothing beyond the frontier except empty space and dead worlds. Sarah took a deep breath. I need to send a message to humanity. The chamber erupted. Council members shouted in a dozen languages. The speaker had to call for order 3 times before silence returned. Dr. Chen, the speaker said slowly, humanity is extinct. You yourself are believed to be the last human alive. Who exactly do you believe you are contacting? I cannot explain everything, Sarah said. Not yet. But I am asking you to trust me. Give me access to the array for 1 hour. Let me send my message. If nothing happens, then you can call me crazy and ignore me forever. But if I am right, then what I am about to do will change the course of this war. This is madness, several council members protested. But then Admiral Vrichtal stood up. He had been sitting in the military observer section and his presence commanded attention. Council, he said firmly, I speak for Dr. Chen. She has earned our trust through 5 years of dedicated service. She has never lied to us, never betrayed us. If she says this is important, then I believe her. Grant her request. The speaker looked at Sarah for a long moment. Finally, she nodded. Very well. You may use the array, but we will be monitoring everything you send, Dr. Chen. If this is some kind of trick, it is not, Sarah promised. Thank you. 3 days later, Sarah stood in the control room of the Deep Space Communication Array. It was a massive orbital platform, bristling with transmission dishes the size of cities. The power it could generate was enough to send a signal that would reach the far side of the galaxy. Vrichtal stood beside her. He had insisted on being there, both as support and as a witness. Several council security officers watched from the back of the room, hands on their weapons. Sarah, Vrichtal said quietly, what are you really doing? She smiled at him, and he saw hope in her eyes for the first time in years. I am calling my family home. She activated the array. Her fingers moved across the controls with practiced ease. First, she transmitted a complex mathematical sequence. It was based on prime numbers and quantum frequencies, a pattern that could not occur naturally. It would get attention from anyone who knew what to look for. Then she spoke in English, her voice being recorded and broadcast with all the power the array could generate. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, Prometheus Archaeological Division, Survivor Identification Number Alpha 739. I am transmitting from Concordat Central Station. Package Alpha Omega is activated. Humanity received your gift with gratitude. The debt will be paid in full. Come home. She repeated the message 3 times, then added one more line. And please hurry. Our friends need us. The transmission ended. The control room was silent except for the hum of cooling systems. Sarah shut down the array and turned to face the others. Now what? Vrichtal asked. Now we wait. 6 months. That is how long it will take for my message to reach its destination and for the reply to arrive. 6 months? Vrichtal's antennae drooped. Sarah, in 6 months, half the Concordat could be destroyed. The Devourers are planning their largest offensive ever. We have intelligence that they are gathering their entire fleet for a massive strike. I know, Sarah said softly. That is why I waited so long. I needed to be sure the situation was desperate enough. Because what is coming, it will change everything, and not everyone will be happy about it. The council demanded explanations. Sarah gave them very little. She told them that humanity had not been completely destroyed, that some had survived, that they had been preparing for their return. But she refused to give details. You will understand when they arrive, she insisted. Some things must be seen to be believed. The council did not know whether to put her in prison or give her a medal. In the end, they did nothing. They simply waited as she had asked. What choice did they have? The war grew worse. The Devourers launched their offensive exactly as intelligence had predicted. Concordat worlds burned. Entire species were wiped out in days. The military was stretched to breaking point. Admiral Vrichtal's fleet was assigned to defend his own homeworld. The Kreshvara system had already been attacked twice. Intelligence suggested a third attack was coming soon, and this one would be the end. Vrichtal spoke to Sarah one last time before the battle. If nothing happens, he said quietly. If your message brings no response, then this will likely be goodbye, my friend. The Devourers are coming with everything they have. We will fight, but they will come, Sarah said with absolute certainty. I promise you, Vrichtal. Humanity will come, and when they do, they will remember that you saved one of us when you had no reason to. That debt will be repaid. I told you there is no debt. I know, but we remember anyway. The 6-month deadline arrived. The Devourer fleet entered the Kreshvara system with overwhelming force. 3,000 ships, enough to glass the planet 10 times over. Vriktal's defense fleet numbered barely 200 vessels. He prepared to sell his life dearly. Then every sensor on every ship went insane at once. Space itself was tearing open. Not in one place, but in hundreds. All around the Kreshvara system, reality ripped apart like paper. The energy readings were impossible. Nothing in known physics could do this. Through the tears in space came ships, human ships. But they were like nothing the Concordat had ever seen. They moved in ways that violated the laws of motion. Their hulls shimmered with energy that seemed to bend light around them. And there were so many of them. Hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands. Vriktal stared at his scanner in disbelief. His communications officer was receiving a transmission, a human voice speaking in perfect standard galactic. Concordat Defense Fleet, this is Admiral Maya Okonkwo of the Human Reclamation Armada. We received Dr. Chen's message. We are here to repay an old debt. Please stand aside. We will handle the devourers. Vriktal found his voice. This is Admiral Vriktal. We welcome your aid, but there are 3,000 devourer ships. Even with your numbers, Admiral, the human voice said, and there was steel in it. Watch and learn what happens when you make an enemy of humanity. The human fleet moved forward, and the devourers learned what it meant to face an army born of legends beyond imagination. The battle that followed was not a battle. It was an execution. The human ships moved through space like sharks through water. They did not fly in straight lines like normal vessels. They flickered in and out of existence, appearing behind devourer ships and unleashing weapons that tore through armor like it was paper. Some human vessels simply vanished when attacked. The devourer weapons passing through empty space where a ship had been a moment before. Admiral Vriktal watched from his command deck, his 4 eyes wide with disbelief. His tactical officer was speaking in a rapid stream of clicks, trying to make sense of what the sensors were showing. Captain, their ships are moving through higher dimensions. They are not just flying through space, they are folding it around themselves. And their weapons? I cannot even classify them. Some use pure energy, some seem to manipulate gravity itself, and others— The officer paused, his voice filled with awe. Others appeared to be rewriting the laws of physics in localized areas. In less than 2 hours, 3,000 devourer ships had been reduced to scrap and fleeing survivors. The human fleet did not pursue the ones that ran. They simply let them go, carrying their terror back to the devourer empire. When the battle ended, a single human ship approached Vriktal's flagship. It was smaller than a battleship but larger than a cruiser, and it moved with a grace that seemed almost alive. A docking request came through. Vriktal granted it immediately. Admiral Maya Okonkwo strode onto his bridge like she owned it. She was tall for a human, nearly 6.5 feet, with dark skin and silver hair cut short in a military style. She wore a uniform that seemed to be made of liquid metal, shifting colors in the light. Behind her came 2 guards in armor that made them look like walking fortresses. But what struck Vriktal most were her eyes. They were human eyes, brown and warm, but they held depths of knowledge and experience that seemed impossible for a single lifetime. Admiral Vriktal, she said, extending her hand in the human greeting gesture. It is an honor to finally meet you. Vriktal grasped her hand carefully, mindful of his chitinous strength. Admiral Okonkwo, your arrival is— I do not have words. You saved my world, my people, everything. Thank you for saving Dr. Chen, Maya replied simply. Without her signal, we would not have known when to return. You gave us the gift of perfect timing. I do not understand, Vriktal admitted. Sarah said humanity was not extinct, but this— He gestured at the view screen where thousands of human ships floated in formation. Where did you all come from? How is this possible? Maya smiled, and it was a sad smile. Walk with me, Admiral. There is much to explain, and not all of it is easy to hear. They went to Vriktal's private office. Maya dismissed her guards, and they stood alone in the small room lined with star charts and battle honors. 30 years ago, Maya began, the Devourers attacked Earth. That part of the story you know is true. They came without warning, without mercy. Their fleet glassed our world, killing billions in a matter of days. It was humanity's first contact with alien life, and it was genocide. Vriktal's antennae drooped in sympathy. He had seen the same thing happen to other species. But what the galaxy does not know, Maya continued, is that we had a plan. 10 years before the Devourers came, Human archaeologists found something on Mars. We called them the architects, an ancient race that existed billions of years ago. They left behind technology that we could barely understand, but we studied it in secret. Why in secret? Frictal asked. Because we were afraid. Afraid of what other species might do if they knew we had access to such power. Afraid of what we might do to ourselves. So only a small number of people knew. Scientists, military leaders, certain government officials. They formed a secret organization called Protocol Exodus. Maya walked to the window and looked out at the stars. When the Devourers attacked, we had just enough warning to activate the protocol. Hidden gates built with architect technology opened all over Earth. In 3 days we evacuated over 8 billion humans through those gates. Not all of them. Not even most of them. But enough. Enough to ensure humanity would survive. Where did you go? Frictal breathed. To a pocket dimension. A space that exists alongside our universe but separate from it. The architects built it long ago, and they left it for whoever was worthy to find it. Inside that dimension, time moves differently. For every year that passes outside, 5 years pass inside. We have been there for 30 years of galactic time. For us, it has been 150 years. The implications crashed over Vriktal like a wave. 150 years of preparation, of growth, of advancement. We did not just survive, Maya said quietly. We thrived. We took the architect technology and built upon it. We advanced further in a century and a half than we had in our entire previous history. We built new ships, new weapons, new ways of understanding the universe. And we prepared for the day we would return. Why did you wait so long? Frictal asked. Why not return immediately and take revenge on the Devourers? Maya turned to face him. Because revenge is not justice. We needed time to make sure we would not become like the Devourers ourselves. We needed time to build not just an army, but a society that could wield such power responsibly. And we needed to wait for the right moment, the right reason to return. Sarah's message. Yes. When Dr. Chen sent her signal, she told us 3 things. First, that there were good species in the galaxy worth saving. Her message described how the Kreshvara saved her life at risk to themselves, expecting nothing in return. Second, that the Concordat was losing the war and needed help desperately. And third, that the time was right for humanity to take its place in the galaxy again. Frictal sat down heavily in his chair. How many of you are there? In the pocket dimension? Over 12 billion. We brought 5 billion with us on this expedition. The rest remain behind, continuing to build and prepare. What you see outside is our reclamation fleet. It is not even our largest force. 12 billion, Vriktal repeated in wonder. We thought you were extinct. We mourned the loss of your species. And all this time you were out there growing stronger. We mourn too, Maya said softly, for the billions who died on Earth, for the history and culture that was lost, for the years we spent in exile. But we also swore an oath. We would return. And when we did, we would make sure that what happened to us never happened to another species. That is why we are here, Admiral, not just to save the Concordat, but to end the Devourers once and for all. Over the following days, more Concordat leaders arrived to meet with the humans. Sarah Chen came with them, and there was a joyful reunion between her and the fleet from humanity. She had spent 5 years alone among aliens. Now she was home again in a way. The humans shared some of their technology with the Concordat, though not all of it. They were careful, Maya explained, not to give too much too quickly. Rapid advancement could be as dangerous as no advancement at all. But what they did share was revolutionary. New shield systems that could shrug off Devourer weapons, sensors that could detect ships light years away, medical technology that could heal injuries that were previously fatal. And they shared knowledge. The humans had studied the Devourers during their long exile. They knew their tactics, their strategies, their weaknesses. They knew how to fight them and how to win. The Concordat Council officially welcomed humanity into their alliance. There was some fear, of course. The humans were so powerful, so advanced. What if they decided to conquer instead of help? But Maya addressed those fears directly in a speech before the entire council. We know what it is like to be helpless, she said. We know the terror of seeing your world burn and being unable to stop it. We will never inflict that on another species, never. We have power now, yes, great power, but we have also learned responsibility. The architects left us a gift, but also a test. The test is whether we will use their legacy to build or to destroy. We choose to build. We choose to protect. And we choose to stand beside the Concordat as equals, not as masters. The council believed her. How could they not? The humans had already proven their intentions by saving Kreshvara homeworld. As news of humanity's return spread through the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some species celebrated, grateful for powerful new allies. Others were frightened, worried about what this new force might mean. But the Devourers had a very different reaction. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they felt something they had never experienced before: fear. The Concordat military observers could not believe what they were seeing. In a massive training area on one of humanity's mobile battle stations, human soldiers were demonstrating their capabilities. Admiral Vrichtal stood with a group of Concordat officers watching as humanity showed them exactly what kind of army they had built. The first group to demonstrate were called the Vanguard. They wore armor that seemed to be made of dark blue liquid crystal that flowed across their bodies. A Vanguard soldier stepped into the center of the training ground and the demonstration began. Practice drones fired weapons at him from every direction. Plasma bolts, kinetic rounds, energy beams. The soldier did not dodge. He did not hide behind cover. Instead, his armor flickered and the weapons passed right through him as if he was not there. He had phased slightly out of normal space, existing in multiple dimensions at once. Then he moved. One moment he was standing still. The next he was behind the drones, his rifle firing with perfect accuracy. Each shot destroyed a target. When the drones tried to adapt, firing at where he would be instead of where he was, he simply phased again, becoming untouchable. Our Vanguard soldiers can shift between dimensions for short periods, explained Colonel James Rivera, the human officer conducting the demonstration. They can pass through solid matter, avoid weapons fire, and attack from unexpected angles. A single Vanguard squad can hold a position against forces 10 times their number. The Concordat officers looked at each other in amazement. One of them, a military historian, spoke up nervously. "This seems almost magical."
"How is it possible?"
"The architect technology taught us that reality has more layers than most species realize," Colonel Rivera said. "We learn to move between those layers. It is not magic. It is advanced physics, but I understand why it might seem that way." The next demonstration featured the Wraith pilots. A fighter craft sat on the platform, sleek and dangerous looking. A young human woman, barely out of her teenage years, approached it. She wore a skin-tight suit covered in glowing lines. "Wraith pilots do not fly their ships," Rivera explained. "They become their ships." The pilot placed her hands on the fighter's hull. The glowing lines on her suit pulsed, and suddenly her eyes rolled back and she went rigid. But the fighter came alive. It lifted off the platform and began moving through an obstacle course with impossible precision. It spun, dove, and weaved through barriers at speeds that should have been fatal. "Her consciousness has merged with the ship's systems," Rivera continued. "She experiences what the ship experiences, thinks at computer speeds, reacts in nanoseconds. When she is merged, she is the deadliest pilot in the known galaxy, because she does not have to think about controlling the ship. She is the ship." Vrichtal watched in wonder as the fighter performed maneuvers that would have torn apart any normal craft. Finally it landed and the pilot disconnected. She stumbled slightly and medical personnel rushed to support her. "The process is exhausting," Rivera admitted. "Pilots can only stay merged for a few hours at most. But in combat, a few hours is more than enough." Then came the Titans. Vrichtal heard them before he saw them. Heavy footsteps that shook the ground. 4 figures emerged from a transport vehicle and every observer gasped. They were massive, 12 feet tall and built like living tanks. Their armor was thick and bristling with weapons. But these were not robots. They were humans. Enhanced, modified, and transformed into super soldiers that seemed more myth than reality. One of them stepped forward and removed his helmet. His face was still human, still recognizable, but there was a power in his eyes that was almost frightening. "Titans are volunteers," Rivera said. "They undergo extensive biological and technological enhancement. Their bones are reinforced with architect materials. Their muscles are augmented with synthetic fibers. Their nervous systems are accelerated. Each Titan has the strength of 20 unenhanced humans and can operate in environments that would kill normal soldiers instantly." The Titan picked up a massive cannon that would normally require a vehicle mount. He aimed at targets downrange and fired. The explosion was enormous. Then he simply walked through a wall of fire that the demonstration team had prepared, emerging on the other side completely unharmed. "They are our front line," Rivera said with pride. "Our unstoppable force. When Titans deploy, Enemy positions fall. But the most unsettling demonstration came from the Scion Corps. A quiet human woman stepped onto the platform. She wore simple robes with no armor or weapons visible. Scions are humans who have awakened latent mental abilities through architect neural enhancement, Rivera explained. They can do things that most species believe are impossible. The woman raised her hand. Training drones activated and rushed toward her. She did not move. The drones simply froze in midair, held by an invisible force. Then, with a gesture, she crushed them like paper, their metal hulls crumpling without anyone touching them. Telekinesis, Rivera said. But that is not all. The woman turned toward the observers. Suddenly Vrichtel heard a voice in his mind, not through his ears but directly in his thoughts. Greetings, Admiral Vrichtel. I apologize for the intrusion, but this is the most effective way to demonstrate telepathy. Vrichtel clicked in surprise. Several other observers made sounds of shock. The voice continued. We do not use this ability lightly. Reading minds without permission is considered a serious crime among humans, but in combat it allows us to coordinate perfectly, to sense enemy intentions and to break enemy morale. The voice faded from his mind. The Scion woman bowed politely. There is one more thing to show you, Rivera said, but this one is difficult to demonstrate safely. So instead, I will simply tell you about the Eternal Watch. He pulled up a holographic display. It showed what looked like streams of light moving through complex patterns. Some humans have chosen to upload their consciousness entirely into digital form. They no longer have physical bodies. They exist as pure information, able to inhabit any computer system, any network, any machine. They are our intelligence network, our cyber warfare division, and our early warning system. Thousands of them are spread across our fleet, watching, learning, protecting. They see everything, know everything that passes through our systems. One of the concordant observers, a being made of crystalline structures, spoke up. This is terrifying. You have built an army that seems unstoppable. Rivera nodded seriously. Yes, we have. And that is precisely why we spent 150 years learning discipline, honor, and restraint before we came back. Power without wisdom is just another form of evil. We had to make sure we would not become monsters in our quest to fight monsters. What stops you from conquering the galaxy? Another observer asked bluntly. Our memory, Rivera replied. We remember what it felt like to be helpless, to watch our world burn. We remember the Kreshvara saving Dr. Chen when they had no reason to. We remember that power is a responsibility, not a right. And we remember that the architects left us their technology as a test. The test is whether we deserve it. Admiral Maya Okonkwo joined them then. She had been listening from the back of the group. Our military philosophy is simple, she said. Overwhelming force combined with absolute restraint. We will destroy any threat to innocent life without hesitation, but we will show mercy to those who surrender. We will protect the weak. We will honor the brave, and we will never, ever become the thing we fought against. She looked at each of the observers in turn. In our long isolation, we studied the warriors and legends of our past. Samurai, knights, ancient military codes of honor. We built our new society on the foundation of those old ideals. Every human soldier learns not just how to fight, but when to fight. Not just how to kill, but when to spare. We are an army of legends because we chose to embody the best of what humanity ever was. Vrichtel felt his respect for these humans growing even deeper. They had power beyond measure, but they wore it lightly. They were warriors, yes, but warriors with souls. There is one more thing you should understand, Maya said. We did not build this army to rule. We built it to protect. When this war is over, when the devourers are defeated, we will not demand control of the Concordat. We will not insist on special privileges. We will simply be one species among many, standing together in a galaxy where all can live in peace. And if other species fear you anyway, the crystalline observer asked. Maya smiled sadly. Then we will have to earn their trust the same way the Kreshvara earned ours. One act of kindness at a time. One life saved at a time. Fear fades when people see who you really are. We have patience. We waited 150 years to come home. We can wait a little longer to be accepted. That night, Vrichtel sent a message to all Concordat forces. He described what he had seen. The vanguard that could not be touched. The Wraith pilots who became their ships. The Titans who were living fortresses. The Scions who moved objects with their minds. The Eternal Watch that saw everything. But he also described the human philosophy. Their honor. Their restraint. their memory of suffering and their determination never to inflict it on others. The humans have returned, he wrote, and they have brought hope with them. Not just hope of military victory, but hope that power can be wielded wisely, hope that strength can serve justice, hope that we can win this war without losing our souls. The message spread through the Devourer Empress sat on her throne of obsidian and bone, listening to the reports with growing fury. She was ancient by the standards of most species, having ruled her empire for over 300 years. In that time, she had conquered hundreds of worlds and exterminated dozens of species. She had never known defeat until now. "Explain to me again," she hissed at her military commander, "how a species we destroyed 30 years ago has returned with a fleet that defeated our best battle group in less than 2 hours. The commander trembled. The Empress was known for killing messengers who brought bad news. "Your Majesty, the humans appear to have accessed technology far beyond our understanding. Our intelligence suggests they found ancient artifacts, possibly from the architects themselves." "The architects are a myth," the Empress snapped. "Perhaps not, Your Majesty. The human capabilities match the legends, ships that move through higher dimensions, weapons that manipulate the fabric of reality, soldiers who cannot be killed by conventional means." The Empress was silent for a long moment. Then she made her decision. "We will not bow to these upstart humans. They think they can intimidate us? We will show them what true power looks like. Mobilize the entire Imperial fleet, every ship, every soldier, every weapon. We will crush humanity once and for all, and then we will dissect their technology from the ruins." The commander bowed and hurried away to carry out the orders. The Empress smiled coldly. She had ruled through fear and overwhelming force for centuries. She would not change now. Admiral Maya Okonkwo received the intelligence about the Devourer, mobilization from the Eternal Watch. Digital consciousnesses had infiltrated Devourer communication networks and were feeding constant information back to the human fleet. "They are committing everything," her intelligence officer reported. "Over 20,000 ships, the entire might of the Devourer Empire, all converging on our position." Maya studied the tactical display. "They think we are like them, that we can be broken by superior numbers. They do not understand what they are facing." She composed a message and sent it directly to the Devourer Empress on all frequencies. "This is Admiral Maya Okonkwo of humanity to the Devourer Empress. 30 years ago you destroyed our homeworld. You killed billions of our people. You thought you had eliminated a potential rival. You were wrong. We have returned and we offer you one chance for peace. Surrender now. Stop your conquest. Join the galactic community as equals. If you do this, we will show mercy. If you do not, we will end your empire. You have 48 hours to decide." The Empress's response came within an hour. It was a video message showing her laughing. "Humanity offers us mercy. You should be begging for mercy from us. We will destroy you as we destroyed Earth. And this time we will make sure none of you survive." Maya watched the message with Sarah Chen standing beside her. Sarah's face was hard, but there were tears in her eyes. "She does not understand," Sarah said quietly. "She thinks we are the same species that she wiped out. She does not know what we have become." "Then we will teach her," Maya replied, "and the lesson will be one the galaxy never forgets." The human fleet prepared for the largest battle in their history. But they were not afraid. They had spent 150 years preparing for this moment. They had built their ships, trained their soldiers, and hardened their resolve. They knew what they were fighting for. And they had one more surprise to reveal. In the deepest reaches of the pocket dimension where humanity had sheltered, they had found something the architects left behind. A construct of pure energy and consciousness dormant for billions of years. It was something the architects had used to reshape reality itself, to build worlds and civilizations. Humanity had awakened it, and more than that, they had formed a symbiosis with it. 5,000 humans had voluntarily merged their consciousness with the construct. They had become something new. Something more than human, yet still carrying human values and human hearts. They called themselves the Ascended. They did not have physical bodies anymore. They were beings of light and energy who could manipulate the laws of physics through sheer will. They could protect entire planets from destruction. They could move through space faster than any ship. They could see across vast distances and understand complex patterns that normal minds could not comprehend. They were, in essence, humanity's answer to godhood. But they remained servants, not masters. Protectors, not conquerors. The Devourer fleet arrived at the designated battlefield, 20,000 ships, the accumulated might of a conquering empire. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their numbers and their power. The human fleet met them with only 5,000 ships. The Devourers laughed. They thought the humans were fools. Then the Ascended arrived. Space itself seemed to ripple as 5,000 beings of pure light materialized across the battlefield. They were beautiful and terrifying at once, human-shaped but made of stars and energy. Their presence could be felt by every living being for light years in all directions. The Devourer fleet hesitated. For the first time they understood that they had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Maya Okonkwo gave the order. Show them what it means to face humanity. Show them mercy where possible. Show them justice where necessary. But above all, show them that genocide has consequences. The battle began. Human ships moved through dimensions, appearing and disappearing across the battlefield. Wraith pilots flew with impossible precision, destroying Devourer vessels before they could even fire. Vanguard soldiers boarded enemy ships, phasing through hulls and disabling systems from within. Titans led ground assaults on Devourer command stations with unstoppable force. But the Ascended were the most devastating. They moved through the battle like angels of judgment. When Devourer ships fired at them, the weapons simply stopped, held in place by will alone. When Devourer vessels tried to flee, the Ascended folded space around them, trapping them in place, and they spoke. Not through communicators, but directly into the minds of every Devourer in the fleet. You destroyed Earth because you could, because you enjoyed conquest and cared nothing for the lives you took. We could destroy you the same way, but we will not. We are not you. We are humanity, and we believe in justice, not revenge. Surrender now, and you will be shown mercy. Fight on, and you will be stopped. Many Devourer ships surrendered immediately. Their crews had never felt such overwhelming power. They had never faced an enemy that could speak directly into their minds, that could hold their ships frozen in space with a thought. But some fought on. The most fanatical, the most loyal to the Empress. They died quickly. The humans did not enjoy killing them, but neither did they hesitate. Those who threatened innocent life had to be stopped. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the Devourer fleet was shattered. 15,000 ships had surrendered. 3,000 had been destroyed. 2,000 had fled into deep space. The Empress herself was captured by Sarah Chen, who led a vanguard team onto the Empress's flagship. They found her on her throne, surrounded by dead guards who had tried to protect her. You should have taken the mercy when it was offered, Sarah said quietly. The Empress spat at her. You think you have won? You think you can hold an empire together? You are fools. Without fear, there is only chaos. You are wrong, Sarah replied. There is cooperation. There is mutual benefit. There is civilization. You built an empire on fear and death. We will help the galaxy build something better. The Empress was brought before a tribunal, not a human tribunal, but one composed of representatives from every species the Devourers had attacked. They heard testimony from survivors. They saw evidence of atrocities, and then they passed judgment. But the judgment was not execution. Instead, the Empress and her inner circle were offered a choice. They could undergo rehabilitation, a process using advanced technology to help them understand the suffering they had caused and to rebuild their capacity for empathy, or they could be exiled to a quarantine system where they could harm no one. Even you deserve a chance at redemption, Maya told the Empress. That is what separates us from you. We believe people can change. We believe in second chances, even for those who showed no mercy themselves. The Empress chose exile. She could not accept that she had been wrong. But some of her followers chose rehabilitation, and in time a few of them would rejoin society as changed beings. The Devourer Empire collapsed. Without the Empress and her brutal leadership, the various conquered species rose up and reclaimed their freedom. Some conflicts erupted, but human peacekeepers and concordant forces worked together to minimize violence and help establish new governments. Humanity shared their technology carefully, piece by piece. They taught other species about dimensional travel, about advanced energy generation, about medical miracles. But they were careful not to share everything. Some knowledge was too dangerous. Some power was too great. And they helped establish a new galactic government, the Federation of Free Worlds, based on cooperation and mutual protection. Every species had an equal voice regardless of their mility,